Minister, I'm returning to the question regarding the irregularities in milk quota which took place between Glanbía, Clongowes Wood and a farmer in Tipperary, which was investigated by your department. I want to know, was the Gardaí made aware of the details of this case? And if you will waiver legal privilege to disclose the opinion of the Chief State Solicitor's Office on this case.
Thank you. The Minister.
Yeah, thank you, Deputy. The Deputy is aware of the background to this case, which I outlined in the House in my reply in relation to parliamentary question on the 7th of October. In short, my department conducted a full investigation into allegations that milk collections from one supplier were credited to the account of another, and that this was being facilitated by the milk purchaser concerned. I have already indicated that following this investigation, I accepted the recommendation of my officials that a prosecution in this case should not be pursued. In making its recommendation, my department had regard to all of the facts, including the corrective action taken, the lack of financial gain for any of the parties concerned, the fact that the parties' obligations under the milk quota regulations had ultimately been met, that super levy was paid, and that there was no financial loss to other farmers, the Exchequer or the EU. Furthermore, the ending of the milk quota regime meant that there was no deterrent factor for other quota holders in pursuing a prosecution. Against that backdrop, my department did not refer the matter onto An Garda Síochána. I have also indicated that I instructed that the relevant papers be sent to the Chief State Solicitor's Office for advice, that office appointed a prosecuting counsel to examine the facts of the case, and that my department also had regard to that advice and to the likelihood of successful prosecution, given the details of the case and the standard of proof required in making its recommendation. As always, Deputy, the opinion received from Council is subject to legal privilege, and it would not be appropriate for me to disclose its contents at this time. But as I said previously, Deputy, this was a case that I was concerned about. I was the one who insisted on an immediate investigation. It was a very robust investigation. It resulted in the company concerned having a full investigation of their own. It resulted in a lot of correspondence between my department and the company concerned.
Thank you.
It resulted in the individual involved resigning from the board of Glanbía recently. So, we have acted in a fairly robust manner on this case, but I have to take the advice of my officials, and I have to take legal advice and make balanced decisions on that basis.
Thank you. Deputy Martin Ferris.
Good morning, Minister. You see, the person in question didn't resign willingly. He resigned as a result of it being raised in this House here and raised continuously with you and your department. And I find it very difficult to comprehend that somebody can who is in a very prominent position in the board of Glanbía, has a milk quota being allocated to Clongowes Wood, is able to use that milk quota, whether Glanbía known or with committing these irregularities. And when you compare that to the way other farmers have been treated around the country, it stinks to high heaven that somebody can do that. And did you say there was a Garda investigation?
No, there wasn't a Garda.
No. Why wasn't it referred to the Garda? Because here you have blatant attempted fraud, at least. Blatant attempted fraud. You have a major milk processing company, you have Clongowes Wood, and you have the farmer in question.
Thank you, Deputy.
And this was not referred to the Garda. Why wasn't it referred to the Garda? Because most people would be of the opinion that after somebody else it would be referred to the Garda.
Thank you. Minister.
Yeah, well, first of all, I agree with you, Deputy, on this. Right? This shouldn't have happened, and it wasn't allowed to happen, right? Because our systems picked it up, and we responded to it very robustly. And anybody who's been involved with our Special Investigations Unit, as it was at the time, knows that they are pretty robust in terms of how they get to the bottom of things. They do work with and take advice from the guards on a regular basis. People were interviewed under caution here. And we followed up on this to the detail, and as a result, as I say, there was a full investigation both by our department and by the company concerned. And there was an explanation as to why this happened, which I don't want to go into but I can brief you on it if you want me to. As to why this happened and the circumstances that led to an individual effectively using a quota that was assigned somewhere else in a separate part of the country. And we made it very clear at the time that this was totally unacceptable, regardless of the explanation as to why it was happening. And there was one. But it wasn't acceptable to me. And that is why there was a full super levy fine applied. And also, we referred this file to the Chief State Solicitor's Office because I felt that it was appropriate to do that, so that we could have an independent assessment of this overall case.
Thank Deputy Ferris.
And the advice I got.
I'm sorry, Minister. I really have.
But I'll be able to come back one more time.
Yeah, there's another question and another answer. Yeah, Deputy Martin Ferris.
Yeah, you see, this wasn't initiated, to my knowledge, until such time as an article appeared in the paper. That was part of this investigation, because it was in the public domain. This just didn't come down by the system. That's my knowledge. And also, I have reason to believe, from information I've been given true or otherwise, that the State Solicitor, Chief State Solicitor, recommended that this be referred to the Gardaí. Now, if that's the case, I think in the interest of the public out there, that we need to know that, if that was the case, did he make a recommendation or she make a recommendation that this should have been investigated by the Gardaí? Because if it isn't, it brings into question the whole situation regarding the department and yourself, if that's true. So I think you need to clear that up.
Thank you. Minister, to conclude.
To be clear, because I can talk about the advice that I got within my own department. And let me just read from the advice I have. The facts are not so clear as to provide a sufficient degree of probability that a prosecution would succeed, given the legal standard of proof beyond reasonable doubt. In my view, it is also relevant that the quota system is now abolished, and therefore there is no merit in taking a case in order to encourage others to obey the law in this matter. Finally, it should be noted that the full super levy of $143,000 was ultimately paid in this case, and therefore there was no loss to the national or EU purse. In fact, taking an uncertain prosecution would be more likely to expose the state to costs. Taking all of these factors into account, I'd recommend against prosecution. That's the advice I have, Deputy. Right? Sorry, that's my Secretary General. Right? But that's on the basis of the legal recommendations coming to him and to me on the basis of the Chief Solicitor's Office report that we got.
Thank you.
Right?
Okay. Sorry, no, we're going on, and I have to move on to the next question, Minister. So, in fairness, Deputy Michael Fitzmaurice, number 3.
No panic. Minister,